End of the day, government will say, why you go to kidnapping job? Why you go carry gun when you no be military person? But job no day to you to carry survive. That's only fast money.
There are so many sickness. Children are dying.
Just I'm very eat. Every day, someone eating, the fire eating. So the farmers are suffering, the crops are not growing, the fishes are dying.
Money. Today, then they talk about politics. Oil, now be the politics for Nigeria.
In 1956, oil was discovered in Oloibiri, a small town in what is now Bayelsa State. The find was billed as Nigeria's ticket to wealth. The expectations were simple. Oil revenue would fund schools, hospitals, roads, and industry. It would turn a colony into a modern nation. The expectation did not materialize. Instead of widespread development, oil became the main source of political power and public revenue. By early 1970s, government budgets and national planning were organized around crude oil exports. Agriculture and local industry were deprioritized. Decision-making moved forward, controlling oil money, not building productive capacity. The consequences were visible and painful. Communities at the source of the wealth, like Oloibiri, Ogoniland, and other parts of Niger Delta, remained poor and became poorer. Decades after the first commercial well, many oil-producing towns still lack reliable roads, clean water, electricity, and functional schools, and primary health care as well. Oil extraction has only left behind ruptured pipelines, frequent spills, and continued gas flaring that destroyed farmland and reduced fish stocks, and these were never fixed. Today, violence followed the money. Local anger over environmental damage and broken promises gave rise to militancy in the Niger Delta. Activists and community leaders who protested environmental destruction, corporate neglect were often met with repression. So the central question stands: has oil been Nigerians' greatest blessings or its deadliest curse? The discovery at Oloibiri promised national transformation. Instead, the story that followed it is one of the stalled development, entrenched corruption, and repeated violence, and a nation dependent on a single volatile commodity. In this video, we'll be unpacking how a resource that should have been a foundation for prosperity instead became the main source of Nigerians' instability. To ride on, don't forget to like and subscribe. In 1956, history was made in a quiet town called Oloibiri in present-day Bayelsa State. That was where Shell BP drilled Nigeria's first commercial oil well. The well produced thousands of barrels of crude oil daily, and with it came loud promise of a new future. For people of Oloibiri, the discovery meant expectation. They believed their community would be the first to feel the wealth. You know, new roads, steady electricity, modern schools, clean water, and hospital. Those promises never came. Instead, Oloibiri was left behind. After the oil rush moved to other parts of the Niger Delta, the town faded from national memory. The well dried up in 1970s, and with it went every trace of government attention. Today, the people of Oloibiri live in deep poverty. Basic services are absent. Many still drink unsafe water from streams. Road remains in poor condition. Electricity is irregular. The once busy oil site is nothing but rusting equipment and weeds. The contrast is brutal. Billions of dollars earned from crude lifted Nigeria into OPEC and made the country Africa's biggest oil producer for decades. Yet, the very community that gave Nigeria the first oil has nothing to show for it. Even the plan to build an oil museum in Oloibiri, first announced in the early 1980s and repeated many times by successive governments, has remained largely unfinished. Each new administration used it as a talking point but failed to deliver the promises they made. For the people of Oloibiri, oil has been a story of broken promises. They gave Nigeria the resource that defines its economy, but in return, they received neglect. This is the first clear sign of the curse. The birthplace of Nigerian oil wealth is a symbol of abandonment, not prosperity. If the origin community itself could be left in poverty, it showed early that oil would enrich a few, while the people closest to it suffered the most. By 1960, before oil became Nigeria's lifeline, the country's economy stood on agriculture. The north produced granules, with the famous granite pyramid in Kano as proof of abundance. The West thrived on cocoa, which funded education, infrastructure, and the first skyscrapers in Ibadan and Lagos. The East was known for palm oil, which was exported globally and sustained communities. These sectors not only provided jobs but also placed Nigeria among the world's top agricultural exporters. Everything changed when oil money started flowing in large amounts in the early 1970s, especially after the global boom of 1973 to 1974. Government revenue grew overnight. Now, instead of using the new wealth to build on agriculture and industry, leaders found oil too to rely on. It was quicker to export crude oil and collect rents than to invest in productive sectors that required planning and accountability. This created what is often called a rentier economy. This is where the state depends on collecting rents from natural resources instead of producing wealth through industry and farming. The effect was that agriculture was abandoned, farmers received less support, exports collapsed, and food that Nigeria once produced in surplus had to be imported again. For instance, by the 1980s, Nigeria, which once exported palm oil, had become one of the world's biggest importers of the same product. Cocoa production dropped drastically, and the granite pyramid disappeared. The industry that could have absorbed the growing population were also neglected rather than building strong factories, refineries, or research centers. The government focused on sharing oil revenue. Civil service jobs and contracts tied to oil wealth became more attractive than farming or industrial work. This fueled a culture where many depended on government patronage instead of innovation or hard work. Even citizens started going where the money is in their choice of career. The cause became clear. Oil wealth weakened productivity. It made the country dependent, lazy, and vulnerable to every shock in the global oil market. Instead of being a stepping stone to development, oil became the excuse for underdevelopment. A nation that once had the capacity to feed itself and export to the world lost that advantage because crude oil was treated as only source of prosperity. Oil revenues quickly became a pipeline for corruption instead of development. In 1990s, General Sani Abacha looted billions of dollars from Nigeria's oil wealth, money that is still being repatriated decades after his death. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, the body meant to manage oil, became infamous for missing billions and APAQ accounts. Each oil boom created a new billionaires among politicians, while ordinary citizens saw no improvement in their lives. So the pattern was established. Have you seen where the money is? It's in oil. Boom. You see people fighting to get into power, and they became leaders who treated the state as a personal bank account, and citizens were left in poverty despite living in oil-rich nation. The Niger Delta, where oil comes from, became the region that suffered the most. By the 2000s, militancy took root. Groups like the Movement for the Emancipation of the Niger Delta, MEND, turned to kidnappings, pipeline bombing, and armed struggle. Oil that should have been a blessing became the very reason for violence and death in a region it was taken from. Make it make sense. Oil has also been central to Nigeria's instability. During the Biafran War, from 1967 to 1970, the control of the Niger Delta oil field was one of the key reasons the federal government fought to keep Biafran from leaving the country as an independent body. The conflict killed over 1 million people, and oil revenues were at the heart of it. In the decades that followed, oil money financed coups and dictatorship. Military rulers clung to power not to reform the nation, but to control oil wealth. From the 1970s to the 1990s, Nigerians saw repeated coups, many of them linked to who would manage the country's massive oil earnings. Oil did not bring peace at all. Instead, it became the currency of political power and the price of the war. In the early 1980s, when oil prices crashed, Nigeria fell into debt and economic crisis. Again, in 2014, another oil price collapse drove the country into recession. The COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 saw oil demand collapse worldwide, and the Nigerian economy shrank sharply. Every downturn in the global market dragged Nigeria down because its budget and foreign reserves are tied to crude export. This is the trap. A country of over 200 million people depends mostly entirely on the mood swings of international oil prices. Instead of building diverse industry, Nigeria chose to gamble its future on one volatile resources. In conclusion, the big question is why oil did not build Nigerians the way it's transformed nations like Norway, Saudi Arabia, or the UAE. The difference lies in leadership and institution. Why those countries invested in oil wealth into sovereign funds, infrastructure, and human capital, Nigerians squandered theirs on corruption and short-term politics. The failure to diversify economic meant every oil boom was wasted, leaving the nation weaker. So oil itself is not the cause, but the mismanagement, weak institution, and lack of accountability that turned Nigeria's oil into a disaster. What Nigeria missed was the chance to use its oil wealth to fund schools, technology, and industry that could sustain growth beyond good exports. So my question is all hope lost? Do you think there will be a change if a good leader is installed as the president of Nigeria? What's your take about this? Drop your comments, especially in the coming 2027 election. And until next time, bye for now.